what is the difference between the method of the Socratic dialogues and just traditional teaching? What is the difference and why it is becoming so important today to deal with teaching in a manner that isn't just the way that it's been going on for so many years? Hi everyone, this is Yash Vasant, the founder of the Playtos University, and today we're going to deal with a very beautiful question. It's important to just kind of understand what happens in this process, because the understanding that Socrates and Playtos and philosophers in the past have had for years, 2,400 years I believe was when the allegory or the game came out, which I want to talk to you about. But the idea drives from this point of what is the greatest way for a child to learn. And the first understanding that I've been able to have and inculcate in whatever educational practices that we're in is there is the concept of teaching a child needs a break. Because I don't think that we're teaching a child, I think the child is learning. Because when we think we're teaching them, maybe they're not learning, and when we think we stop teaching them, they're learning, and there's this whole mishap or this confusion that's created in not just the child's mind, but in the mind of the cumulative of everyone around it, where they believe that there is a gap in what they're being taught and what it is that they're actually learning. And this is where the Socratic dialogues come in. So what is the method of the Socratic dialogue? There are so many videos and so much deep understanding which you can look up to understand what it is, but primarily it is a function of asking the right questions, coming from a basic standpoint of intellectual modesty, where sometimes it might even seem ironic or might seem sarcastic even, but the idea is to ask the right questions to form a loop in logic that creates doubt. Which creates doubt, and when there is doubt, there is curiosity, and when there is curiosity, there is a chance of finding the truth. Because in a lot of cases, such as justice and other forms of philosophy, there might not be one right truth. But the idea of asking questions, having a dialogue that builds up on it, creates a foundational learning process. It creates the building blocks to how someone thinks, not what someone thinks. For instance, a lot of parents have asked me, hey, is Playtos going to feed my child A, B, and C? Are they going to be fed arithmetic or an understanding of science or the Vedas or whatever it may be? And my answer usually is that Playtos, for instance, is not food, but it is a mechanism to create hunger. This understanding is critical because the curiosity of the child is what's making the child want to learn more, as opposed to not wanting to learn more and not being hungry, but given, food or thought in this case. The allegory of the cave is a beautiful example of understanding what happens to a child in this entire learning process. And the understanding was as follows. And Plato, when he came up with this, was a revolution, and there's so much looking into it that has happened. But the primary understanding is that back in the day, or the allegory says that there were certain people who were trapped inside a cave. And they were put in this cave, and they were trapped in this cave where they could not leave, and their entire life was in the cave, in the darkness. The only version of reality that they knew was the shadows that they could see, because there was light coming in from a small crevice in the cave, and the shadows that were formed, the shadows of a fox or the shadow of a lion or the shadow of a tree, were their reality. Until one day, one of the prisoners escapes the cave. He escapes the cave and he goes out and he sees, a real lion or a real fox, a real tree, and the sun, which is the source of all of these shadows, and he's mesmerized. First it took him a second to get used to all of that light outside, and as he's used to it, he's amazed at the opulence of what he sees. And then he comes back into the cave because that's his duty. He wants to get his other people to know what he has seen. He wants to share it. He goes back into the cave and he starts talking to his people, and he tells them that these shadows that you see, they aren't real. The reality is so beautiful, it's so amazing, and this is what I saw. And as soon as he shares this with them, most of the prisoners back in the cave think he's lost his mind. They think this journey completely made him lose it, because they haven't seen it, and they can't believe what he is saying. Plato used this allegory to kind of explain the difficulty it is of being a philosopher who's seen the light and sharing that light with people who haven't seen it. However, the understanding in education today is critical, because all of us live in this world where we want to give the best to our children. However, we're stuck in one belief system, one thought process, one threshold, and that threshold is us as parents. Here's what I mean by that. Imagine that you grew up in a small town in India and you hadn't left the country or even your city or state. And you grew up, in a nice family, and you had the opportunity and someone took you to Macau to go gambling. Say that's your thing. So you're taken to Macau and you go see this beautiful city and the casinos and all of this stuff that's there, and you come back and someone asks you, hey, how was Macau? The answer that you're going to give them is what? Is, oh my God, it was amazing, it was beautiful, these large casinos and the parties and the food and the gambling and all of this that you saw in Macau was amazing. And then this person has the opportunity and is taken to Las Vegas. That person goes to Las Vegas, comes back, and the same people ask him, hey man, how was Macau? What is he going to say now? Well, now he comes up to you and he says, well, Macau is nothing. Las Vegas has all these bigger casinos and amazing. Look at the streets, look at the life, look at the lights. And most of us spend our lives just living in Macau. If that doesn't make sense, what I'm trying to say is that we haven't seen Las Vegas, and hence Macau becomes our truth. It becomes our threshold. And our role inevitably becomes to break this threshold, at least for our children, because knowingly or unknowingly we pass these belief systems on to our children, which then kind of live with that, right, with the same threshold that you had, where you haven't seen Vegas, so you're not lying. Macau is beautiful, that's your truth. However, we're unable to break it. The objective of for instance, an institute like the Playtos University or other things that you may find in your life which challenge this thought, which break the patterns of the family, of the parents, is what our children need today. Because I am 100% certain that evolution has taken place in the past so many years. Not just evolution from the Australopithecus to us, but evolution in the form of the intellect that we have. And I am certain that our kids today are incredibly more intelligent than we were when we were their age. They demand more, they want to be challenged more, they want to be challenged at a higher level. And traditional education is brilliant. It's not bad because of the environment it provides. There's so many years of being tested. However, no matter what country you are in, you have found that this education falls short somewhere, doesn't it? And the reason is not the fault of any school. The reason is simple, that when you're dealing with mass education, you cannot, it's almost impossible to evolve at the same rate at which the world is evolving, at the rate that technology is evolving, at the rate at which thought is evolving, ideas are evolving. And it becomes impossible for a government to ensure that all of the schools, they update their curriculums at the same pace. It just can't happen. And hence there comes a need for what I like to call being beyond school, where there is a need to, of course, give your child the basics, but then for certain children that deserve it, that have earned it, that have parents with the right resources, unfortunately, those are the people that come in first. But my philosophy has been to take it to those even not with the right resources. How can we make sure that it is based on merit? However, that's a different topic. The children that come in above the regular masses, what we give them is what makes them extraordinary. And that function of what happens beyond schooling is a function of adaptability, because it isn't the big that eats the small anymore. It is the fast that eats the slow. And this function of adaptability is what we want to build in our children and keep it at a constant focus as parents. So I wish us all the very best and hope this helps in your thought process of what is right to do for your child's education. Once again, this is Yash Vasant from the Playtos University.